So this is the final round of the symposium. I might take the opportunity to thank you all, especially our guest speakers, for their contributions, which I really appreciated, and I think I'm not alone. Of course, we are not able now to resume everything what we heard in these 2 days, otherwise we would have another 2 days. So what we try is we invite here the 6 curators who made the whole process a year-long process now, which led them here to Munich. And I might take the opportunity just to ask you this one question: what did you take out of the and maybe one topic, what was important for you to take out of these 2 days here in Munich, or maybe of the whole process? Who wants to start?
Yes, how to say, we got a really lot of impressions for sure. What was for me very interesting to feel or to analyze, that I feel we all as colleagues have a sort of common ground in a way. We should discuss what this common ground might be or what it is. But for me, I was very happy to also feel the differences in a good way. So I said we have a diversity which in a way could be fruitful for further discussions. That the topics we put on the table were super different on one hand side. Metaphors were different. Also, this for me was an interesting thing, the visual approach in terms of the language. But there is a sort of feeling that we can also relate together in a productive way in terms of relationships which could be strengthened all around, let's say, all around the world in the future. Another aspect was really interesting for me. I was not, the decolonizing aspect was much more central as I have imagined it. So there is a lot to do to discuss power relationships. I would not have imagined it in such a in such a way or to such a degree. There is still a lot to do, and then a lot of let's say questions or topics. It's too early, but what gets as glimpse in my mind is, for example, I was a lot of thinking of this fat thing André was mentioning, how to deal with things which are so far out and not to handle, and how to take care of this, of these extremes and this not being correct, or not in a way which, what are things which are not being curated at all, and how to deal with it. That was for me an interesting thing, the question of the potentiality, how we can go really further in open up things. The question of the power control, which also was popped up in different discussions. Then your aspect of the nothing, so curating the nothing, the no-thing and nothing. A lot of very, very interesting things which need time to be further reflected. But how to say, I have a little bit of feeling that we open up a big variety of topics how to say, that we fill a sort of plate, whatever, but everything has to be discussed in much more details, and it's a starting point, and we should go on as a group, as a community. I think it's worth to really go further on in terms of reflect what we are doing. This I miss often. We have to really build up an official discourse of what we are doing and what kind of methods, what kind of criteria, what kind of approach we have. And it's a starting point, but it is only a starting point. Let's say it like this. But in a good way. Also I'm at the moment only as a feeling. I'm content with what we achieved as a beginning. Let's say it like this.
I have some thought fragments. You said what rises up at the end of the day. I hope I get these right. So just, I think, 5 or 6. Kingson, cynicism reduces our will to create change. My notes may be off. Elvira, the idea of etc. curator constantly questioning herself. Andre invoking Fred Moten's the fat thing, the things that don't belong. Jay's curating crisis. King Sing again, alternative currencies and curating. Sueli, the pulsation of the question mark inside. And then moving forward, I thought what to make of the 2-year process, and a lot of time and no time at all, and maybe we could commission Adrian to write about curational duration conferences and the prolonged, processional, persistent, durable, sustained, surviving, spirited affinities. Thank you. That's my...
Well, hello? Just go for it. Just go for it. Yeah, I am somehow stuck with the presentation by Suli, and I have a lot of brainstorming within myself. So I have a lot of thinking process I've been going through after our presentation. I just want to share some things with you. You know, personally, I have living in this fantasy, of a kind of a utopia, how creation and also presentation of performance should be. And today, just like I've learned in our tandem, the shifting perspective. And so when Suli was talking about an impersonal, intensive aesthetic, so I was asking myself what kind of impersonal, intensive aesthetic should be, and what direction should it be? Does it mean that I'm going to lose part of myself? Does it mean that I'm letting myself completely loose into being in control, like what I'm trying to avoid in this issue of decolonization? But something also come to say, but you don't have anything, and just like what the last speaker said, that you don't have your own experience. Is it true that I don't have my experience? Is it true that I don't even, not relevant in the production or the presentation of whatever idea one has, or whatever the artist you are creating? But of course, I also go further to also borrow from her and shifting from colonial unconscious. Like my own idea itself is also colonialism. I just have to shift from it. So it is just like boiling out to be at every second, at every minute in our presentation, in our creation, we have to shift border. We have to constantly be focusing on things that go around us. And we, just like she said, we have to keep asking, are we shifting from colonial unconscious, or are we reproducing colonial unconscious?
Yeah, well, okay, for me, just two little things. For me, it was very inspiring, especially in these 2 days here, to see how things that I do more, not really instinctively, but I haven't studied curating. I don't have an academic background, so I can't quote anyone. So things that I sort of practices that I sort of developed through experience over the year. It was very enlightening to sort of see how many of these things resonate with things you people brought in here, and sort of approaches that come from a lot more abstract perspective, but that they sort of resonate very much with practices that I just have developed. Also, some of the things I heard challenged things that I have the habit of doing, which is also good. So I think this whole thing of reflection is really important, and unfortunately you seldomly have the time to really step out and look at yourself and ask yourself what are you doing there. What I would like to, my wish would be for the future. I agree that there is still a lot to be discovered in this field, and my wish would be to find a way of having a more specific reflection about curating theater. I'm now really saying theater and not performing arts. I mean performing arts. I don't mean only theater, like plays being done. But I do feel that there is a difference between performance, performing arts, this sort of in the context of contemporary arts, and the curation of a theater festival like yours, or a season like, I don't know, the How or something like that. I think there is a difference, and we haven't really talked about that. And there is still something that I would like to think more about in this area.
Thank you. I would have to support my partner. She actually said everything that was on my mind. No, seriously, wow. I think we've spent too much time together. You know. No, I totally agree. I didn't study curating. I'm not an academic. I mean, I got my degree, whatever, but I'm not an academic. And it was very important in some instance. It was important to, connect what we do instinctively. I mean, I basically 5 years ago decided I'm going to do a festival, and a few months later I was just doing a festival. So, with all that, with all the stupidity that comes with such a decision, because there's a lot of stupid decisions like that. But so it was important to connect that with, some of the theories and ideas behind. I also think I would add to what Anya said, that it's also important, at least in my opinion, not to over-analyze and over-intellectualize what we do, because then somehow I personally feel a little bit suffocated, because some of the things, because I'm aware that we need to develop a sort of a discourse and a thought line behind curating, especially for the theater, which I totally agree, being a theater person myself. And I know that in the visual arts this is much more evolved than in the performing arts. But at the same time, there is the whole also beauty of discovery and of not even going somewhere and not even thinking of anything of that, and just meeting the oeuvre or the work and and saying, oh wow, I like that, this is good. And when you're walking home to the hotel, it's connecting all the dots. You think, oh, this would work because it would resonate with that, and it could resonate with this, and not necessarily just with the audience, and that is a process that I don't want it to be lost or killed by just trying to, connect everything, even if we're connecting them in a very, you know what I mean? Not in boxes and but in circles and and all that. But at the end of the day, we're trying to box them. We're boxing them into unboxable shapes when they shouldn't be boxed. So we need to leave space for that. And more performing arts. And I have an idea of how we can proceed, if I may. I would like to have conversations in context. Like, I know it's a very expensive idea, as usual. but I would like to see us all in Cairo. I would like to see us all in Singapore. I would like to see us all in Colombia, in New York, in Lagos, in Fribourg, and have these conversations live with, with the action. I don't know, conversation, observations, inviting other people every time to come and reflect with us. I think that this could be an interesting, a very expensive, but a very interesting next step. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Yeah, wow. Okay, thank you.
Together.
Yours was open. Yours was open. Mine was. You have to open. You have to talk.
Okay. I suppose as I'm sitting here, I'm really very aware of the responsibilities of being a curator, right? I mean, how do you constantly challenge yourself, because you are the custodian of ideas, and also I feel that not just ideas, but also of things that matter, and I think it was very interesting for me, very emotionally moving to hear Adrian's last keynote. It was, for me, a real luxury to to be in a kind of curating lab with all these inputs from our great speakers who took every, they really, I think, I must really take my hat off, because everybody took really labor, love, and care to give us a good speech. And for me, it was something that was deeply felt by all our speakers. And it made me think a little bit about how, as a curator, you are also retrieving. You are retrieving things which are lost and which have not been considered again anew. And just by Adrian putting the two artists together, you once again reconsider Anna Mandiata in a different way. And I feel like this is, and it's a question of, like, was he curating? I think he was curating by putting these two energies together. And so the whole thing is that, it is, what are we curating? Are we curating energies? Not just ideas, because the ideas also have a force. Right? So are we curating bodies? Are we curating economies? Are we curating things? Are we curating human beings? And I think that this Andre's refusal, and I know this even from NYU with him, where his refusal to find some other word apart from thing. So that the thing is somewhere in between the object and the body or the human being, and the thing is actually non-scientific. It's a non-scientific word. It's something which is put there in a way to challenge the rationality of what we are doing. So I really feel a need to say that I think that this is a beautiful opportunity to be in this kind of situation, and I feel that a need to actually have more education about curating, but not just from curators to curators, but from life to potential curators, to awaken these potentialities in us. And I think we're curating all the time. Right? I mean, yesterday we were saying that even when you are looking for someone to help you with your child, you're curating 10 people who apply to spend 2 hours with your child. So you're curating something. And this idea of curating energies is something which I'm trying to connect all these different speakers in my own way, to draw a red line and not to see them as separate ideas. And I do want to critique and to reflect on this blind spot of the curator, that, we keep talking about the performer's body, but what about the curator's body? This is something which, I don't know what I can bring to look at this question, but I do feel like the curator's body is, it's like sometimes when you see this kind of generic silhouette of a person, right? Because you don't have a photograph, you have this silhouette in your computer of who this person is. And so the curator's body is also this silhouette for me. It's some kind of invisible, but yet it's traced. And I think we really have to reduce these blind spots in because they are spots which accumulate power. And how do we actually try to constantly critique power, authority, because we have to. It's no longer a world where festivals or institutions or venues can happen where, in my younger days, I met many curators who said to me, I just like the work, so I chose to work for my festival. But, you need to be able to reflect more on that. That's not enough anymore, because we all like so many things, but what is our responsibility for bringing them into these relational spaces? So that's what
I want to thank, first of all, Sigrid, and also in the name of the group, to thank Sigrid, first of all, for this initiative, and the Goethe Institute to support this useless platform, which is so important nowadays. This non-productive space and time, which is so rare nowadays, not to be here to produce, even if we all know that there are many things, of course. Yes, wait. I'm taking my time to say one word to. So I wanted to thank, first of all, Sigrid for this idea, which I must say I was very skeptical at the beginning, because this idea, as an abstract idea, as just a sentence, was for me something very strange, And to be here today, after that doubt I had, is something that I'm very grateful. So, and now I thank Tillman, because we are here in his festival, in his space, being part of this curatorial version of his festival, where this useless time and space is used for. So thank you, Tillman, also, and thank you to all my partners and to my tandem partner for having shared this time, which started with this uncertain question about what could be the curatorial practice within the performing arts, and I didn't know exactly what was going to be. And now I still don't know, but I feel that from this very first meeting in Mülheim, where we all met for the first time, and now there has been a very long, intense, dense time, and it was very rich, very, very rich for me, these 2 days. And this is the next thanks, because I am also very grateful with each one of the people that we have invited all together to be here with their lectures, with the contributions. Every single contribution was another plant, another flower, another glass of water, to this necessity of not clarifying or making definitions or reducing the term, but on the contrary, to open what these can be. Now until this consideration you're making, that at the end we are curating our own lives, our own relationships, we are curating every single encounter, no? So that this notion of curation is well, very deep and can be thought in many very different aspects. So I just want to finish with what for me remains as the last gift, which is this as the transit room. The transit room. I feel this is the transit room. We are now in the expectancy of something which can happen after that. We don't know, no? But it's a very beautiful paradox to be in this room now with such a heavy history behind, but with such a hope as well. No? We have been sharing in this room very beautiful thoughts and encounters, and now this is a transit room for something which is going to be developed by each one of us with all these gifts that we have received in this today. So thank you so much to everyone, and thank you also for your presence here, no? Because this is a presence which is the energy that we all need now, no? to be alive. So thank you.
So I should answer my own question maybe also. I must say what's the most amazing for me is really to hear and to see how far this, let's say, post-colonial discourse, or this actual post-colonial discourse can go and is, and I was really astonished how to hear about these approaches which I did not hear about, and I'm constantly asking myself why in Germany this discourse did not arrive really, or maybe it's only me, but I have the feeling it's not yet in this broad sense as it has been described here, or spread here. And my suspect is a little bit, this has something to do with that Germany regards themselves with a lot of bad history, but there is this kind of myth that maybe we are not a big colonial nation, which is not true, in fact, not at all. But this myth is, I think, here, and it's vivid in Germany, and I think this disrupted us also from this post-colonial actual discourse in a way. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to have you here, and I learned a lot in these days. Thank you.
Somebody has said.
Excuse me. Well, thank you, because it's really super nice. But I think you brought this question of post-colonial, etc., and you said, oh, we realize that it's there yet, no? And you said, oh, there are other ways to deal with that and to understand it or to behave with that. I think that, as I said in my presentation, what the colonial is not the colonizer and colonized countries. Capitalism, which was brought together and inextricably linked to colonial stuff, has won all the planets. Everything is colonized, but this kind of regime, and this kind of regime is associated to a kind of subjectivity, desire, etc., etc. That's why we are totally there. And it's very violent. It's much more perverse than just arrive and say, "You nigger!" No, it's something very subtle. And we are totally trapped in that. All the time. And it's very difficult to situate that, and it's very difficult to resist that, no? So, for me, it's not a surprise that in such a platform that you invented, so nice, to share really efforts to situate ourselves, this question appears. For me, it's not even to somebody of German or France or United States, this is totally there. It's unbearable also, no? Bon, I wanted to say just this, and I think that in this situation we are living, and in this limit of the situation we are living today, this international crisis, which is not only economic, of course, it's very difficult to deal with that alone. And we need small communities in order to, we need to invent platforms like that. It's good if it's go on, but it's not a catastrophe if you invent something else. But we need that because it's very difficult to try to situate this experience and to find the words to make sense alone, no? Today. Excuse me, huh?
But of course, you know, what is very interesting is that the power centers remain, right? Because all of us will walk away with this experience of tossing this knowledge around, information around. And I think about the fact that if this happened in Singapore, you have a different Singaporean audience. And these audiences all over the world who, in a sense, they're off-center in some ways, right? And so these audiences will never be able to have that access, which all of us have the privilege of being able to be here, either because we're invited, or we live in the city, or we could afford to make it ourselves to be here. And I think that this is, it is a very strong shadow in my mind that, you know, I wish that we can share this information with different cities, with different audiences, where this information is vital and not just something that we play around with in our theories, in a way. Like how would this be if we were in a university in Cape Town, in those universities where there are white shields and where there are student unrest? I mean, how do we deal with those very explosive contexts? And talking about these things like the body knowledge and the colonial consciousness, you know, which it's a force in those audiences. Here is an implicit force, but well, you know what I mean.
Other comments?
Me, as a natural scientist by training, I want to thank you so much. I rarely met so many intelligent and very friendly people who are so open, looking into the future. I felt so much home here. It's really touching. And I must agree to this amazing Deleuze-Guattari expert that we should try a platform, and maybe what's your name from Singapore? Peng Seng. I would love that there's a collaboration between, you know, we are in a very high-tech town here, Munich, which in my perspective is losing competence in philosophy. And I would love that Munich tries together with Singapore to build a platform touching sciences, particularly life sciences, and to to try to create some workshop. I think it's really necessary. I observe that ethics is quite weak, that the medical experts avoid discussions like this. I would love that there's some small initiative happening. That's one wish.
Yeah, the day, we had 2 long days. So we come to an end. The biggest thanks to you as an audience, and let's hope that we see us together. Again, together. Whatever.